Mr. R.K. Chitkara, Country Director, UAE, World Agriculture Forum. He has been associated with agriculture leadership, international cooperation and global agri sector engagement. I invite Mr. Sanjeev Kanwar, Managing Director, Yara South Asia, who's a senior industry leader with extensive experience in crop nutrition, sustainable agriculture, and farmer-centric solutions. I invite Shri Pankaj Kumar Bansal, IAS, MD, National Cooperative Development Corporation. Shri Bansalji brings valuable administrative and institutional experience in strengthening cooperatives and supporting rural economic development. And ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege to invite Mr. Sanjeev K. Chadda, who is the former Managing Director, NEFIT, and former Additional Secretary, Government of India, and has deep experience in agriculture marketing, procurement, cooperative institutions, and policy implementation. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I now hand over the session to our distinguished moderator, Dr. Tarun Sridhar, to kindly carry forward the proceedings of the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. Thank you for this enlightening introduction. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first session post-lunch. And I think that enthusiasm appears to be waning a little bit. But I hope as the session progresses, we'll see some more faces in the audience and some attentive ones too. It's a real honor and privilege to be moderating this panel of such eminent professionals and experts from the diverse subsectors of agriculture and food sector. Welcome all of the fellow panelists. It's truly a great honor. You see, when we talk in terms of policy reforms for sustainable agriculture and food security, let us cast a look at the past of Indian agriculture. Despite its serious fallings, inadequacies, shortcomings, agriculture of India is one of the biggest success stories of post-independence India. At the dawn of independence, we were struggling with acute food shortages. In fact, at certain places, we were also staring at the face of famine, and we were still reeling under the after effects of Bengal famine, the tragedy of partition. And who can forget from our generation the pejorative PL 480, Public Law 480 of the United States, under which we had to import food grains from USA in very humiliating conditions. And the agriculture experts of USA used to say that the food grains being sent to India are fit enough only for pigs to eat. And then our late Prime Minister Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri gave a clarion call to the population of this country to observe fast every Monday so that we could save on food grains. So our entire focus of food security post-independence was essentially food grain security, not necessarily food security. From there, we have now graduated, wherein we are being called the superpower, food superpower of the world. In fact, I remember 1 year back, there was an article in The Economist. And mind you, Economist is not a magazine which is favorably inclined to India. The title of the article itself was that, will India emerge as the world's next food superpower? And it gave us the background of our growth of our agriculture when we were used to be derided as a basket case agriculture. From basket case agriculture, we are now the bread basket of the world. And our economy was termed as ship to mouth economy. Like we didn't even have a concept of a buffer stock. Ships loaded with grains would come from USA and other countries and straight away go to the regional godowns or the Russian shops. And again, PL 480 also became an adjective and abuse. And if you had to condemn anyone, कि some fellow is a useless, good for nothing fellow, we used to say, ये तो PL 480 hai. So we began with Green Revolution, followed by White Revolution. Green Revolution focused on production. White Revolution focused on empowerment. Like Pankaj, you were just mentioning as to through the cooperative sector, more than 70% of what the consumer pays goes to the pockets of the farmer. So this is how, okay, we'll quibble on the percentage later on. Because having worked for donkey's years in the dairy sector, etc., I also have some ideas, but maybe you are right. I wish you are right and I am wrong. But the thing is that Green Revolution focused on production, food security, grain security, white revolution focused on empowerment. And it was followed by blue revolution. Blue revolution actually talked in terms of economic prosperity rather than just livelihoods. So this is the progression of has been a progression of our agriculture. However, despite rising to the top of the world in absolute production, we still remain very poor as far as productivity is concerned. And now with climate change, depleting soil health, depleting land resources, competition coming from sectors like real estate over agricultural land, etc., we need to have a serious relook at our agriculture policy so that the food security we have gained is further strengthened and agriculture as a profession and agriculture as a food producing system becomes sustainable. So I'll stop here and hand over to you, Mr. Sanjeev Chadha. With your vast experience, Mr. Chadha has been Secretary Government of Odisha. He has been Managing Director of NAFED, one of the very competent officers, and I have had the privilege of interacting with him several times, and I'm sure he would provide greater insight into the subject. Mr. Chadha.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all of you. So, since we are running late, so we'll just keep our interventions very brief so that we can save time. I was fortunate to, in fact, work in horticulture, agriculture, and agriculture marketing sector, both in the state of Odisha as well as in Government of India. So I'll put forth some of the policy interventions that are required to take our agriculture sector forward. So far as the procurement is concerned, I used to procure pulses and oilseeds on behalf of government. So there is need to shift from rice and wheat procurement model to pulses and oilseeds, so that the crop diversification, which is much needed, that happens. So we have to move away from and dealing this procurement of the wheat and rice from the MSP regime. We have to reform the PDS sector so that it's not only grain heavy. It has to be driven by nutritional requirement of the public. So we have to diversify the PDS basket also. After the farm laws were withdrawn in 2021, there is need to modernize the APMC architecture in the country, and there needs to be state-specific interventions in this regard. We have to then, if we talk of the subsidy architecture, so we have to shift from the price distorting subsidies and allow the farmers to decide the inputs need-based for them. So then we come to free power and free water. So as sir has rightly said that we are facing challenge of depletion of water table. Even in Punjab, we are facing that. There is soils are becoming acidic. So we need to rationalize this free power regime and incentivize water conservation, as Punjab has started that scheme Pani Bachao, Paise Banao. So that kind of mission mode work we have to do. Coming for the small and marginal farmers, you are aware that large number of farmers are tenants. So we need to have Model Agriculture Land Leasing Act. That will basically ensure that tenants also become eligible for credits, for insurance, and other benefits like disaster compensation. Then the digitized land titling is required to unlock the collateral systems. And KCC needs to be reformed so that our tenants can also be covered, tenant farmers can also be covered. Now coming to the FPOs, all of you know that we have a 10,000 FPO scheme. So we need to be, there is need to shift from number of FPOs being formed to number of FPOs who are becoming viable. We have to basically handle the FPOs now in the second phase so that they get access to working capital, their management becomes professional, and they have market linkages, and they're also made a stakeholder in procurement process in the country. when we come to horticulture, there is need to have a uniform mission for protected cultivation. We have to modernize because the land is limited. We have to enhance the production and productivity. So protected cultivation regime in the country needs to undergo a change, and there has to be uniformity because many states, they have their own subsidy regimes. So that's why it's not taking off. We have huge potential in this area. There is need to streamline the regulatory pathways for new genomic tools. It was said in the previous session also by Honorable Minister. We need to have drone and precision agriculture policy. This has to be the focus now. And in the end, all of you must have heard of the carbon credit regime in the country. So agriculture sector has huge potential to mitigate the carbon footprint in this sector. So there is need to have agri integration into the carbon credit trading scheme with approved methodologies for rice methane, which is important. Then agroforestry, biochar, etc. So there is need to streamline that, and farmers and landholders have to be very important stakeholders, and FPOs have to be used as aggregators for carbon credit regime in the country. Then biochar has come up in a big way in the country, so there is need to prepare standards for that so that the carbon credit benefit actually goes to the farmers and aggregators at the grassroots level. I'll stop here, sir.
Thank you so
with
much.
these remarks.
You stopped right on the dot. Exactly 5 minutes. So I won't try to eat into other panelists' time. I'll come to you, Mr. Sanjeev Kanwar. Mr. Sanjeev Kanwar is the managing director of a Norwegian company called Yara, which works in the field of crop nutrition. So, Mr. Kanwar, over to you. What would be your take on the policy reforms for sustainable agriculture without compromising on farmer prosperity?
Thank you so much for having me here. I would restrict myself to the sphere of crop nutrition, because that's where I've been operating for the last 30-40 years, and sir has covered the rest of agriculture very nicely. So I just talked about what maybe we could do in this affair. Since the 1960s, yes, fertilizer industry, the seed and the agchem, we have joined hands and done a fantastic job in making India self-sufficient. But now I think challenges are different from what we faced in the late 60s. And whatever policies that we need to create have to address the challenges that are alive, and they can cause a lot of stress for the next generations coming in. So the first challenge that we see is the soil health. It's not in good shape. The secondary and micronutrients are completely depleted. Water scarcity is a big challenge now. 54% of India is under water stress conditions. Some markets, some areas are worse than the Middle East, and that's a harsh reality. Then we also have the challenge of malnutrition. Almost 18% of Indians go to sleep with hidden hunger. What is even more alarming to me personally is that 40% of children below the age of 5 are showing signs of zinc deficiency. 3 out of 10 stunted children in the world are Indians. I like to remind my fellow panelists and the audience here that these are the Indians who are going to be the workforce of tomorrow in 2047, 2050. How productive will they be? Because the deficiency that's set in at a young age, they will continue for the rest of their lives. So it's a serious thing personally, and also as an Indian, I think we all need to really look at it. Then, sir, you touched very nicely on in the beginning that our production levels, we may be producing a lot of wheat, we may be producing a lot of vegetables and blah, blah. That's fantastic. But the reality is that in terms of productivity per hectare, we are far below the global norms. We need to accept it and we need to act on it. We are going to be a $10 trillion economy in 2035. That's 9 years from now. That's typically about 23 agriculture seasons. That's not a lot of time for us. And Indian agriculture has to double from $650 billion to $1.2 trillion in the next 9 years. And to do that, We need to carry out reforms at express speed. First of all, what do you need to do to correct soil health? When I look at it, we produce urea in India, 1.3 million tons of urea we produce in India, but we are one of the few guys who say, 3 bore mat dalo, 1 hi dalo, kaam chal jayega. You don't need to apply so much of urea. And that is because the subsidy is skewed in favor of urea. Urea prices in India have not been increased for the last 2 decades or something, which is kind of unreal in my opinion. And that is what is, since it's so cheap, it's at $65 per ton to the farmer. There's excessive use of urea. Now we all talk about excessive use of urea, but nobody puts a number to it. We ran an exercise internally and we discovered when we mapped the acreages and the urea recommendations, so on and so forth, we discovered India actually needs to consume about 28 to 30 million tons of urea. That's our domestic production. We actually don't need to import any urea. But we are actually consuming 40 million tons. So 10 million tons of urea excessive is going into the soil, and that is distorting the soil health. And I would remind everybody here that about a month back, when the peak of the Gulf War, unfortunately started again 20 minutes back, the Honorable Finance Minister talked about the 3 F's challenges: fuel, forex, and fertilizers. This 10 million tons of urea, which we are buying and bringing it in, costs about $8 billion. That's a lot of money. We shouldn't be spending it there. So what do you do there? So there, you need to have inflation link price increase somewhere. You need to incentivize the farmer. I'm not sure how many of you are aware. We have 350,000 retail counters in India through which we sell fertilizer. I get my subsidy paid only when I get a thumbprint of the farmer on the point of sale machine. That is what happens. So we know we have traceability there. I know which farmers use 5 bags of urea. So I can run a scheme and say, okay, boss, instead of using 5 bags, you reduce by 2 bags. I will compensate you 500 rupees per bag, less used. I'll put it into your account. And I think digitally we are able to do that. Every 6 months we send some money to the farmers, right? So that is one way of doing it. But it's important that we do something on the fertilizer pricing, because the way it is going, we are just kicking the can further down the road. One day we're going to find that our soils, which are already having very poor pH, very low organic carbon, will not be good enough for us to produce enough food for ourselves. On the water scarcity side, I would talk about we need to have a national fertigation policy, or a national water policy, whatever you want to call it. Every state has its own water policy. Every state has its own fertigation subsidy scheme, which confuses the life out of everybody. So we need to get a fix on that. Third element is we are too dependent on. Yeah, I'm just speeding up. Agriculture is unfortunately a very passionate subject for me. So anyway, I'll just keep it very
We need to control our passions today.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with you. So we are dependent too heavily on the legacy products like a urea and a DAP and NPK and an MOP. We need new products, new generation products to come in. For that, you need a general specification of fertilizer to kick in, which specifies that you need, if you have minimum nutrients and the maximum contaminant in terms of heavy metals, you can just bring it and make it available to the farmers, and that this sector does not need to be subsidized. So that is where I feel if we really want to lift and go at a supersonic speed in Indian agriculture, doubling the farmer income, doubling the contribution to GDP, it's important that we liberalize this sector. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting you, but it's a bit of a difficult task. I don't wish to be impolite. And plus, you were making very tangible points in terms of how to manage our water and soil quality, the primary inputs into agriculture. Rest all is subsidy. I'll come to you, Mr. Chitkara. Mr. Chitkara, Rakesh Chitkara, is in the World Agriculture Forum and presently the country head of UAE. Mr. Chitkara.
Thank you very much. I heard both the speakers. And Tarun, one of the things which resonated with me when you said that India should be talking about being the food basket of the world. My most recent assignment was with the healthcare industry, and we call ourselves India as the pharmacy of the world. So it resonates, And when we talk about being the food basket of the world, it actually fills all the policy gaps we need to handle in terms of increasing the farmer income, doubling the farmer income. The nuances of increasing the farmer income actually adds to the food baskets. Now, my vantage point, I operate out of Dubai. I represent World Agriculture Forum as country director. When we decided to set up the first chapter anywhere in the world was the UAE. It surprised many people why we are talking about agriculture and that too in UAE. UAE has got 37,000 farms. That's about it, right? Few greenhouses which produce the leafy vegetables and stuff. So the consumption which UAE does for its people comes from the captive production, it's about 10%. 90% of the food which UAE wants is imported, right? Now that's where the linkage is, We are a producing country, aspire to become the food baskets, There are huge markets around the world, I can talk about UAE, I can talk about the GCC. 90%, 92%, 93% of the food requirement is all imported, right? Now, Sanjeev talked about the productivity part of it, the soil health. Are we wasting the fertilizers? Yes, of course, all these elements are absolutely important. But one of the key area which we definitely need to understand how the countries which are dependent on the food import, that's where the linkage we can create, how they are managing, One of the things which we really need to look at India is the downstream, When we produce the food, how do we handle the downstream chain, right? How do we create the buffers, How do we create the state-of-art cold chains, The minister in the morning gave a very strong message, We so far have been driven by the volumes, which was the need of the hour. We have 1.4 billion people to feed. We have been import dependent. Now we are export surplus. But are we looking at the quality, Are we able to minimize the food wastage which gets into from the farm to the warehouse and when we do the shipping? Now, one or two examples from the market where I come from. UAE has seen two worst crises. One was when we had COVID. Food was a big challenge, but none of the shelf went empty, The food prices didn't go up. Now we are in the middle of the war at this point of time. The Hormuz is closed and a lot of shipping done out of the sea route, The food is not available. Iran used to be one of the very big supplier of food and vegetables, to UAE market. That market closed. Now, I have lived through UAE during the entire war situation. There was no panic. There was absolutely nothing which disappeared from the shelves. Absolutely nothing. Government just capped the prices of 11 commodities, the tomato and potato, and that's about it, right? So the food storage, the food logistics was done absolutely fantastic. There was no one who was willing to buy excess of the requirements because they knew that food will be available. So there are markets out there which need the production, which need the food capacities, which need the consistency as far as the food supply is concerned. And we in India are very well positioned, very well placed to actually meet those requirements, right? So this is the key message I really want to deliver, seeing the things on the ground. The logistics system is outstanding. The way the way UAE does, gets the food inside and takes the food outside, retains the captive consumption.
Thank you, Mr. Chitkara. I think the strongest message is given, if I, in my own words, put it in a nutshell, is agriculture has to be managed and operated on sound business principles rather than just livelihood.
Actually, the critical over here is when we looked at the agriculture, setting up the chapter on the agriculture, we said that we have to move from culture to commerce, right? Moment we start looking at agri as commerce, the perspective changes. The whole policy thought process changes. We keep on saying culture. We talk about the forefathers, that's how they used to do the farming.
Okay, now I think we just hear Mr. Bansal's views on the subject. Mr. Pankaj Kumar Bansal is officer of the Indian Administrative Service, and presently his post is as the Managing Director of National Cooperative Development Corporation. As also, he's the Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Cooperation. Over to you, Pankaj.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सभी पैनलिस्ट और सभी यहाँ उपस्थित लोगों को मेरा नमस्कार। मैं आज कोऑपरेटिव्स के बारे में बोलूंगा। कोऑपरेटिव्स क्या होते हैं, क्यों जरूरत है इनकी, और अब नई मिनिस्ट्री बनने के बाद हम क्या कर रहे हैं और एनसीडीसी क्या कर रहा है उसमें। अब जो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट के जो हम मॉडल देखते हैं, तो कैपिटलिज्म, सोशलिज्म सबको पता है और सबको उसकी अच्छाइयां और सबकी बुराइयां भी पता है। कोऑपरेटिव एक ऐसा मॉडल है जिसका पूरे विश्व में प्रयास किया जा रहा है वर्ल्ड ओवर कि दोनों की, जो कैपिटलिज्म और सोशलिज्म की, दोनों की अच्छाइयां वहां पर लाई जाए, जहां एक्सप्लॉयटेशन ना हो, वेल्थ क्रिएशन अमॉन्ग्स द पुअर हो, और जितना भी सरप्लस जनरेट होता है वो जो पुअरेस्ट हैं उनके पास पहुंचे, जो कल्टीवेटर हैं, जो पशुपालक हैं और जो हैंडलूम वीवर्स हैं उनको पहुंचे। ये है कोऑपरेटिव। तो कोऑपरेटिव के लिए अगर हम इंडिया में कोऑपरेटिव का एक लैंडस्केप देखें तो करीब 8,50,000 से ज्यादा कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी हैं जो कि 30 सेक्टर्स में काम करती हैं और 31 करोड़ से ज्यादा मेंबर उनसे जुड़े हुए हैं। आप सोच सकते हैं 150 करोड़ पॉपुलेशन में 31 करोड़ प्लस मेंबर कोऑपरेटिव से जुड़े हुए हैं। इसमें ज्यादातर जो सेक्टर हैं वो एग्रीकल्चर और अलाइड सेक्टर हैं, और ज्यादातर जो पुअर लोग, मार्जिनलाइज लोग, रूरल बेस्ड, वही उससे जुड़े हुए हैं। एक इसकी बड़ी चीज है। तो कोऑपरेटिव क्यों है, कोऑपरेटिव की क्यों जरूरत है? कोऑपरेटिव जो मार्जिनल फार्मर्स हैं और जो पशुपालक हैं उनको एक साथ लेके आता है, उनकी बार्गेनिंग पावर को इंक्रीज करता है, जिससे उनके जो इनपुट्स हैं, जो इनपुट की जरूरत है, उसको बार्गेन करके अच्छे रेट पर ले सकें। इसी तरह जो मार्केटिंग है, प्रोसेसिंग है, और उसको जो है वैल्यू एडिशन करके मार्केट करना है, उसको भी वो कुल एक साथ मिलकर के करेंगे तो उसका बेनिफिट भी उनको आता है, और उसमें जो जितना भी सरप्लस आता है वो भी उनके पास आता है। इंडिया में अगर हम सारे डेयरी कोऑपरेटिव्स का नाम लें, पूरे इंडिया में डेयरी कोऑपरेटिव्स काफी सक्सेसफुल हैं, क्रेडिट कोऑपरेटिव भी काफी सक्सेसफुल हैं, कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स भी काफी सक्सेसफुल हैं। तो अगर डेयरी कोऑपरेटिव में अगर हम देखें तो जो दूध हमको मार्केट में, जो भी दूध है, चाहे दही है, चाहे पनीर है, चाहे मिठाई है, जो जिस एमआरपी पर मिलती है उसका 80 से 85% तक जो किसान दूध देता है उसको पैसा मिल जाता है। तो 15 से 20% में सारा उसका प्रोक्वायरमेंट, प्रोसेसिंग, वैल्यू एडिशन, ब्रांडिंग, मार्केटिंग सब उसमें होती है, पूरे इंडिया में है। एक बार जब अमूल ने इसको अमेरिका की मार्केट से कंपैरिजन किया तो जो एमआरपी कॉस्ट जो अमेरिका में जो दूध की होती है उसको फार्मर को केवल 35 से 40% मिलता है। बाकी बैलेंस जो बचा उसका 50% प्रोसेसिंग वाला लेता है और 50% मार्केटिंग ब्रांडिंग वाला लेता है। तो अमूल ने भी वहां अमेरिका में डेयरी कोऑपरेटिव स्टार्ट करके वहां पर मार्केटिंग करना शुरू किया है अमूल के नाम से। तो वो मॉडल हम लाना चाहते हैं, कैसे किसानों को सबसे ज्यादा फायदा पहुंचेगा वो करने से। इसमें जैसे कि बताया मिडिलमैन नहीं होते हैं, इक्विटेबल बेनिफिट्स होता है, और ये जो प्रोड्यूसर बेस्ड है वो मॉडल है, उसके हिसाब से डिसाइड होता है। तो इसमें जितने भी लोग हैं सबकी डिसीजन मेकिंग में इक्वल पावर होती है। ये नहीं होता है कि कंपनीज में क्या होता है, जिसका ज्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट है, जिसकी ज्यादा पूंजी लगी होती है, उसी का डिसीजन ज्यादा होता है और वही ही विल लेट द डिसीजन। और उसका मेन पर्पज होता है कि कंपनी में प्रॉफिट लाना। प्रॉफिट कैसे लेना है? रॉ मटेरियल कम से कम रेट में लेना और फाइनल प्रोडक्ट ज्यादा से ज्यादा रेट में बेचना, यही है उसका काम। लेकिन कोऑपरेटिव में ऐसा नहीं होता है। कोऑपरेटिव प्रोड्यूसर बेस्ड होते हैं, तो उनका काम है कि दूध को अधिक से अधिक रेट पर खरीदना और ज्यादा से ज्यादा रेट में बेचना, वो तो है ही। और उसके बाद भी जो सरप्लस आता है उसको भी, उसका ओनर कौन है? फार्मर है। वो सरप्लस भी फाइनली उनके पास चला जाता है। तो हमको कोऑपरेटिव में पॉलिसी मेकिंग, डिसीजन मेकिंग तो उसी फार्मर के पास है, लेकिन हमको प्रोफेशनल हायर करने हैं और गवर्नेंस लेके आनी है, ट्रस्ट और एथिक्स लाने हैं, तो जिससे ये चीजें आगे बढ़ेंगी। मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉर्पोरेशन आज से एग्जैक्टली 5 साल पहले 6 जुलाई 21 को स्टार्ट की गई, और धीरे धीरे जब ग्लोबलाइजेशन और जो हो रहा था तो उसमें कोऑपरेटिव का रोल कम होता चला गया था। आज हम एग्रीकल्चर और एग्रीकल्चर अलाइड में अगर देखें तो कोऑपरेटिव का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। हमको उनके सारे इनपुट से लेकर के प्रोक्योरमेंट, वैल्यू एडिशन और मार्केटिंग, ब्रांडिंग, ये सब हम कोऑपरेटिव स्ट्रक्चर में लेकर के आएंगे तो किसान का फायदा होगा और किसान को सारा बेनिफिट पहुंचेगा। इसी पर्पज के लिए मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉर्पोरेशन को बनाया गया और आज तक वो यही काम कर रही है। अगर हम 5 साल में देखें तो आपको पता होगा, जो इनपुट देते हैं एग्रीकल्चर में और क्रेडिट देते हैं, एग्रीकल्चर क्रेडिट, वो पैक्स हैं। इंडिया में 1 लाख से ज्यादा पैक्स हैं। तो उन पैक्स को हमने स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए उनके मॉडल बायलॉज बनाए, उनका कंप्यूटराइजेशन किया और उनके थ्रू कैसे क्रेडिट बढ़ाया जाए वो किया गया। और उनको मल्टीपर्पज बना रहे हैं, मल्टी बिजनेस वो करें, सारे इनपुट के अलावा बाकी बिजनेस भी वो करें, जो भी उसमें जिस जिस गांव में उसकी जरूरत है। इसी तरह से जो उनके प्रोक्योरमेंट के बाद जो स्टोरेज करना है, तो स्मॉल लेवल पर स्टोरेज करना, गांव-गांव पर 1000 से लेके 5000 मेट्रिक टन के गोडाउन हर गांव में बनाना पैक्स के थ्रू। तो डिसेंट्रलाइज स्टोरेज करना, और उससे फार्मर उससे प्लेज लोन भी ले सके और जब उसको जरूरत हो अपने प्रोड्यूस को वो बेच सके। उसके लिए गोडाउन्स बनाने की एक वर्ल्ड की लार्जेस्ट हमने जो है स्टोरेज स्कीम स्टार्ट की।
I'll have to stop you here.
Yes, I will take 1.5 minutes more.
1 minute. Okay, not half one.
तो इस तरह से हमने यहां से केवल वही नहीं किया, बीज के लिए भी इनपुट करने के लिए हमने नेशनल लेवल की स्टार्ट की, ऑर्गेनिक प्रोडक्ट्स के लिए नेशनल लेवल की मल्टी स्टेट कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी स्टार्ट की, और हम नेशनल कोऑपरेटिव एक्सपोर्ट लिमिटेड के थ्रू हम एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस को फार्मर से डायरेक्ट खरीद करके एक्सपोर्ट भी कर रहे हैं, जिससे कि उनका बेनिफिट सारा किसानों को पहुंचे। और जो एनसीडीसी है वो कोऑपरेटिव्स को लोन देती है, इट इज लोन ओनली टू द कोऑपरेटिव्स। तो मंत्रालय बनने के पहले हमारा बिजनेस करीब 24,000 करोड़ रुपए का था, जो 5 साल में बढ़ के हमने 1,27,000 करोड़ रुपए क्रॉस किया हमने पिछले साल, 5 गुना हमने की। तो कोऑपरेटिव में हम जो है फाइनेंशियल फ्लो भी कर रहे हैं जिससे कोऑपरेटिव आगे बढ़े, और इस साल का टारगेट हमने 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए का रखा है। तो इस तरह से एनसीडीसी, और हमारा नेट एनपीए 0 रहता है, और पिछले साल भी हमने 1,400 करोड़ रुपए का प्रॉफिट भी किया। तो इस तरह से कर रहा है।
थैंक यू मिस्टर बंसल।
थैंक यू एवरीबॉडी। थैंक यू सर।
आपने सहकारिता के सिद्धांत और ढांचे को बखूबी समझाया और यह भी बताया कि सहकारिता के माध्यम से सतत कृषि में कैसे योगदान दिया जा सकता है, हाउ कोऑपरेटिव्स कैन हेल्प इन डेवलपिंग सस्टेनिंग एग्रीकल्चर। Last but not the least, we have Dr. Purvi Mehta. I deliberately did not answer your query as to what is going to be the sequence of the speakers because I had already taken a decision that you'll be the last one. Dr. Mehta is a senior policy advisor with International Livestock Research Institute, CGIAR. She's also on the board of directors of several companies, and she's a very renowned expert in agriculture policy. Mr. Pankaj Bansal ने mention किया, अमूल का उदाहरण दिया. I think when we talk of agriculture, hardly anyone talks of livestock. So I would request you that while speaking on the subject, please also highlight the importance of the livestock sector in sustainable agriculture and future development of agriculture. Over to you, Dr. Mehta.
Thank you, Tarunji. And I really want to thank you, Dr. Khan, now of course Harris Khan, the entire group. This is becoming an annual ritual to come together and more to celebrate agriculture. There are very few forums which celebrate agriculture and not just get together to complain about agriculture. So congratulations on being consistently a leadership voice in this sector. I think this session is about policies. And, as you said, Tarunji, we as a country have come a very, very long way, right? From being one of the largest recipient of food aid in the world to now giving tremendous amount of insecurity to the world because we have become one of the largest producers of food in the world. And therefore, this transition is absolutely exceptional what India has come towards. But if one looks at any revolution, whether it was the white revolution, Pankajji, that you are in the lead role of now, the green revolution, any of that, policy has remained the common denominator across all the progress that India has made. So this session is very important from various policies, right? Production-related policies, procurement-related policies, and also public distribution of food-related policies. It is a very interesting phrase that I learned from a farmer in Muzaffarpur in Bihar, who said, smaller the farmer, his or her dependence on Ram and Rajya is higher. Ram being the forces of nature and Rajya being the forces of policy. Smaller the farmer, the dependence on policy is way much higher. What is the subsidy I will get? Will somebody come and buy from me? I don't have storages. Will a cooperative come and make me a member? So the dependence on policy of a farmer, especially smallholder farmer, which represent about 86% of this country's farmers, is way higher. But when it comes to global community, now that we are standing in a celebration mode, I want to give you a very, very simple example of how India's policy really impacts the world. Very recently, on 23rd of May, we had a heat wave in Uttar Pradesh. There is a heat wave in a state of India. India thinks that the wheat production this year will get affected because of this heat wave. The government of India takes a decision, again a policy decision, that we may not be exporting as much wheat as we thought we would be this year. The next day, 24th of May, Chicago futures, which is the international global futures market, commodity markets for agriculture, Chicago futures the next day opens 1 hour early with an emergency meeting called by the chairman of Chicago futures, saying, it seems like India last night has taken a decision that there is a heat wave. That's going to impact our wheat prices because 16% of that wheat comes from India. What do we do? So India's policies are also impacted the global. But Sanjeevji, when you were speaking about private sector, right? Listen, no matter how important private sector's role is, public sector will continue to be the largest investor in agriculture. And public sector's role in agriculture is actually to create conducive environment for private sector to thrive rather than, I can say this, compete with the private sector. It's very, very important, right? And private sector, whether it was a traditional conventional product like urea, or whether it is the digital technologies right now or AI, private sector continues to play a very, very important role for India's farmers, and we have to recognize the role. Maize is a very, very interesting example, right? India's E20 policy, which is the ethanol 20 policy, which means we are targeting to replace 20% of our fuel with ethanol, right? maize policy that was declared, the maize production in this country, the number of farmers growing maize, the number of companies operating in the field of maize, the number of FPOs being formed in terms of maize, all has increased by 20 to 23% in last 5 years. Our maize production from, I think, 36 million tons have now gone to 44 million tons in the question of 4 years, which is at 21% growth. So while the agriculture sector grows at the rate of 3%, maize grows. And this is a classic example of policy decision and market-led economic growth. I think agriculture market at the center and production and everything else will follow if we give market. And the cooperatives are a great example of that, right? Amul is not about how well the milk is produced. Amul, for example, is well about how well the milk is marketed. And therefore, you have millions of farmers who are backing the cooperative system. So I think three very, very simple policy suggestions and key things I'd say, Tarunji. Number one is we are predominantly a production-centric system. I think we need to turn that into a profitability-centric system where market and all that comes into picture. Number two is diversification. You mentioned about livestock. There is such a tight link between, 86% of this country's milk does not come from livestock farmer. It comes from a crop farmer who happened to keep a livestock in his field. And so the interlinkage between crop and livestock diversification in this country is the tightest in the entire world, even among developing and developed countries. So that is the number two. And number three is inclusive agriculture policy, which includes inclusion of sectors, inclusion of stakeholders across the value chain, public and private sector, and inclusion of agriculture as a fundamental commerce sector and not just as an isolated agriculture sector.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta. The clock is ticking very fast, the stop clock, and it's telling me that we have only 9 seconds left. But I was told by Harris that from 40 minutes we can extend to up to 45 minutes. So we'll take, Dr. Khan, is it okay we take 5 minutes more? I have no idea. It says time's up to that. Okay, quickly, I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes. Anyone from the audience who wishes to raise a query to one of our panelists? Yes, Mr. Parikh.
Very interesting. I think I'm audible, right?
Yeah, you're audible.
Interesting, we agree, sir, that maize production has suddenly increased. What if we know that this year it would even cost 50 million hectares? Because of one excellent government policy, we cannot. But that has put the poultry industry in a deep stress, starch industry in deep stress,
Aquaculture
in deep stress. At the same time, also, the farmers' realization just a month and a half back, now the prices has increased because of El Nino, but just before the weather issue, it has gone to the level of 1,600 rupees per quintal. So overproduction leads to farmer losing and 3 key industry losing. How do you see going forward that the policy mechanism has to be where it is balanced for everyone rather than just focus on that, one product increase? And definitely when the acreage increase in maize, it has taken away a lot of pulses and oilseed, right? If the decrease has happened in soybean. So what happens is that then actually oil becomes import commodity. So how do the government, right? Question is to you, sir, using the cooperative mechanism, ensure that there is a parity in commodities as well as in different industries, sir?
Though this question relates to some different department, but I will tell my personal opinion. As you rightly said, when the ethanol policy was brought in, so now things are happening in other sectors also. Like CBG policy also being brought in now, which will produce from the farm produce and other things, which will lead to it will certainly raise the income of farmers also. These are very good policy. But when policies are coming, so a little bit market adjustment takes place. So I think it is that only. Market forces will take place and it will grow. Initially starting, it is supposed to happen, it is happening, and I think it is stabilizing now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we will not take undue advantage of this some concession given to us. So we'll wind up here. Yeah, time ho gaya. Thank you to all the panelists. I think we got some very useful points. I'll just make one quick point from what Dr. Mehta said, Ram or Rajya. You see, there are two subsectors. Mr. Parikh will bear me out. Despite the stress on the poultry sector still does not depend too much either on Ram or on Rajya. And other shining example is the shrimp sector. And these two are highly organized sectors being run on sound business principles, and people have opted these sectors to be in these sectors and adopted them as professions, not because they were passed on from generation to generation, out of choice. So ultimately, whatever policy reforms we do, these policy reforms should be aimed at least dependence upon either Ram or Rajya. And a middle class boy or girl from an urban center says, I wish to become a farmer when I grow up. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much indeed. I would like to invite on stage Ms. Rajni Chopra to kindly do the honors of presenting a small token of gratitude to all our dignitaries. We begin by honoring Dr. Tarun Sridhar, former Secretary Department of Animal Husbandry, Dairying and Fisheries. Tarun Sridhar, sir, we would like to present a small token of gratitude to you. To Dr. Purvi Mehta. We present to Shri Pankaj Kumar Bansal, sir. To Mr. R.K. Chitkara, Country Director, UAE World Agriculture Forum. To R.K. Chitkara, sir. And to Mr. Sanjeev Kanwar. And to Mr. Sanjeev K. Chadda. And may I request for a quick group photograph? Plants. Plants. Okay. You can come this side. Ladies and gentlemen, requesting everyone to kindly remain seated. We are straight away moving into the proceedings of the next session.